show awal sangat. Ni aku nak letak co-host mana satu Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yang tu yang mana? YouTube live lah. Bergemur kau.
Hello, sound test. Hello, sound test, sound test. Hello, testing 1 2 3.
Dengar.
Oh, okay. Tak, aku nak tengok dekat live ni. Cubaan suara 1, 2, 3. Cubaan suara 1, 2, 3. Oh, 2, 3. Cubaan suara 1, 2, 3.
Assalamualaikum.
Kesalam doktor.
Nak beritahu yang dekat YouTube tu nanti bagi link juga jangan lupa. Link apa? Link attendance. Bagi form. Yang Cik Azam bagi tu. Siapa yang akan masukkan dalam YouTube link tu? Amir. Dua-dua Amir ni.
Ya doktor.
Nanti ambil link itu. Dia jaga YouTube tu sebab dia orang pun nak juga kan kehadiran e-certificate tu. Ada yang dah forward pada kawan-kawan lain yang universiti lain? Ada? Dalam kelas ni? Ada sesiapa dah forwardkan kat universiti lain?
Untuk link YouTube kan, link website.
Mana-mana lah. You dah forward kat mana? Dekat kawan-kawan tempat lain?
Saya ada forward juga ke kawan saya tempat lain lah.
Okey lah. Kalau YouTube tu tak ada limit kan? Tak?
YouTube tak ada limit.
Kita tak masalah nak bagi kat kawan-kawan kan? Ni dah cukup ke ni? Aku dah suruh aku. You tak WhatsApp Prince? Prince ke kawan you? Mana tu Prince ni kan nak masuk? Ada siapa contact Prince? Tak ada yang?
Tak ada pula doktor.
Dia tak ada dekat Malaysia kan? Ustaz saya ada dekat Malaysia kan hari tu?
Itu dia dekat Malaysia.
Dia PPS engineering lah, powerful. Macam kan? Saya bukan ada kata saya pergi normal. Very common lah. Kan 15 ada kita punya kelas 16 kan? Student. Betul?
Ya doktor, 16.
Lagi seorang, lagi dua lagi belum ni. Lagi seorang lagi. Kita tengah dah cari internet lain ni. Okay, apa kita nak mula ni? Praktis macam mana ni? Kan semua dah ada ni. Sebab saya tengok dah ada. 15 tak ada. Dah keluar balik. Ada internet. Ada masalah internet ke kelas? Kadang-kadang dia in and out tu normal lah kan? Connection dia. Start. Kita mula. Kita akan buka pukul 9 kan? Tapi kita praktis dulu. Macam mana ni? Apa nak mula dulu? Kita nak mula. Semua dah ada ke? Jadi kita check kejap. Ahli. Oh, 17 okey lah. Including saya lah kan. Okey. Amir, dua Amir ni. YouTube kita akan mula masa pukul 9. Betul? 9 lebih sikit kan? And then you jaga YouTube. Saya nak tanya, YouTube tu tak perlu register 24 hours You dapat macam tu direct Betul ke Amir?
Macam mana tu doktor?
Dia ada kata YouTube tu kena 24 hours. Dah register baru boleh guna. Macam you tak ada. On the spot boleh guna.
Saya dah lama dah ada YouTube channel doktor.
Oh, ada lah dah. You dah ada dalam tu, okay, dah pernah register kan? Streaming dalam streaming?
Streaming dah start dah.
Okay lah. Jadi tak ada masalah kalau orang first time nak masuk, nak register ni, tak kena 24 hours tu. Betul lah.
Rasanya
dah ada. Betul lah, aku yang saya tahu kita. So, kita nak mula ke? Praktis sikit. Lepas nanti siapa remind saya yang photo session tu, saya takut terlupa. Sebab itu je bukti kita buat event kan, selain daripada recording ni lah, bincang gambar kan. Jadi kat situ nampak lah siapa yang masuk, especially pada lecture lain kan, dia nak tengok student dia kan. Betul tak? Kalau isi tiket tu dia boleh dah masuk sekejap, dia boleh keluar balik kan. Siapa yang setia tu sampai di end session tu ada gambar dia. Kita boleh dalam satu apa kata? Macam kenangan token dia. Okay. Kita mula bismillahirrahmanirrahim pula. Kita tak isi sekejap. Sebelum pukul 9. Ada apa-apa lagi nak tanya? Okay, siapa sepatutnya ambil screen picture? Siapa? AJK mana ni? Multimedia kan?
Ya.
Ya,
Apa AJK multimedia? Ada siapa pada
Syahira.
Okay, ada tu one of the AJK kan? Betul?
Ya.
Nanti bila you macam nampak dalam tinggi dalam pukul 9 dekat pukul 10 lebih, itu dipantau berapa partisipan. Jadi kita akan lihat berapa maksimum yang ada dan berapa yang paling kurang. And then pada awal, pada pertengahan dan sebelum habis. Dalam sebelah setengah tu saya rasa ramai lah. Dan dekat pukul 12 dah tak ramai lagi. Jadi kita akan ambil yang paling tinggi nanti. Kalau ACP nak tanya berapa partisipan, dari sini dia akan tanya. So ada full lah yang tentang screenshot tu. You get ready boleh tak? You punya laptop boleh ambil? Siapa laptop yang saya rasa tak masalah kan? Ada setengah laptop dia tak boleh ambil kan? Print screen. Dato' punya laptop okey?
Okey doktor.
Okey Dia print screen lah. Lepas tu apa lagi? Yang soalan tu also ada group ada tu kan? Ada kan? Siapa yang prepare soalan tu? Nak nanti remind saya kalau saya terlupa ke, kita lihat waktu. Kalau waktu tu saya rasa eloknya 2 lah. Soalan dia saya dia orang dah dapat kan. Saya rasanya kalau dah bagi soalan ni dia orang prepare panjang ni. Tak apa, saya akan lihat nantilah. Kalau panjang sangat saya akan minta dia ni kan, sebab benda kita ada hak lah untuk kurangkan ke apa ke sebab kita tak nak lebih pada ke 12 10 okey lah. 12.30 dia tak mahu sebab kawan kita nak semayang kan. Apa lagi kita nak start ke tidak ni? Kita nak mula praktis dulu. Kita nak praktis lagi sekali ke? Ya. Satu lagi. Mr. Angga dah ready? Siapa in charge ni? AJK contact panel. AJK panel. Mr. Angga dah ready ke? You boleh lagi ni? Saya panggil Amir Syafiq Mr. lah sebab you panggil Mr. Angga. Macam tak kena pula. Kena ada boleh nama Mr. Amir Syafiq Udin. Recite the doa recitation, okay? Yang Puan Ina tu, saya nak standardize lah Puan Ina dengan Puan Syahria, saya panggil Madam. Okay? Sebab saya perasan dalam poster tu kenapa Puan Ina panggil Mrs. Semalam pun pasal. Yang Puan Ina dipanggil Mrs. Yang dekat poster tu. And then Syahria dipanggil Puan. Betul ke? Cuba cek balik. Betul tak? Ke saya salah pandang? Madam. Kenapa ya? Ada beza ke Mrs. dengan Madam tu? AJK poster. Mana dia? AJK poster. Apa AJK poster? Tak dengar ya. Siapa AJK poster kat sini? Trust.
Doktor, sorry. Saya pun tak ingat yang pasal tu.
Tak, it's okay. Tak ada masalah. Ingatkan IBM suruh orang luar panggil Mrs. ke. And then normally dulu dia orang check tau. Dia orang komen, dia orang pulangkan balik. Ini dia orang pulangkan format je. Macam doanya semalam tu lah.
Sudah doktor.
Sudah. Nanti tidak muka you nampak muka you kan. Ramai saya pun tak kenal you.
Boleh.
Jadi nampak muka.
Semalam tak boleh pasang kamera. Hari ni boleh pula.
Apa?
Semalam tak boleh pasang kamera. Time kita live, time kita meeting semalam tak boleh. Hari ni boleh pula. Macam-macam dah Webex.
Maksud kamera dah boleh dah? Semalam tak boleh kan?
Semalam tak boleh. Time meeting dengan doktor semalam tak boleh pasang.
Oh, dia kena start dulu tak?
Yang tu saya tak pasti doktor. Saya dah banyak kali masuk keluar tapi tak boleh kak. Hari ni boleh pula bagi ni. Rezeki.
Boleh apa? Kamera tu boleh print screen lah. Nampak lah.
Boleh buka kamera, boleh pasang background.
Semalam tak boleh kan?
Semalam tak boleh. Tak tahu kenapa.
Itulah saya kata website ni kadang ada hal sikit. Yang penting kita punya background kita yang nak cakap dengan yang panel. Yang lain tak ada masalah kan? Orang lain ni masuk je, betul tak? Kita ni lah yang nak tunjuk muka ni sebab dia orang tak nak belakang tu bersetabut dengan macam-macam gambar kan? Tu yang background sama dulu-dulu kala tak kisah pun. Masa saya present dulu tak kisah pun belakang apa background pun. Lately ni lah dia nak sama standardize je. Okay, Alhamdulillah lah. Syafiq dah boleh tu.
Alhamdulillah.
Kita benda ni kita pun kongsi kita kan. InsyaAllah lah doanya. AJK panel ni dah contact dah Mr. Angga tak? Soalan pertama AJK panel Shah. Nur Husna. Sarah Hanis. Actually my student lah.
Dr. Mas.
Ya, awak amak grup dia hadir. Okey, ya. Syed Sazwan. you ready? Get ready, ya?
Yes, doktor.
Okay. Another 4 minutes. And then Biro Technical, all the Biro, get ready. Okay. If anything that participant cannot log in, okay, so the in charge, Biro in charge, you have to help them, okay. Maybe got something, the link, okay, problem with the link, okay. All the Biro should be ready, yeah. Okay, can we start now? 1 or 2 minutes. Can educate all the educators, are you ready?
Dr. Ma, Assalamualaikum.
Salam, yeah. Yeah, the Medan Syariah, yes.
Dr. Mas, I cannot use the background because my
Oh, laptop, is it? Tak apa, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, some PC, some laptop, not, I think the same version. I also got the same version. Okay, never mind. Without the background also, you can present. Can, Syariah. It's okay, it's okay.
Can I say good morning to Mr. Angga?
Yes, your best friend, Mr. Angga.
Hello, Syahria.
How are you, Angga?
Yes, Angga.
Yeah, I'm well.
Right, good.
Okay. Very young, Mr. Angga. Huh? I think the first time we meet here online, is it? Online.
Yeah, it was correct.
But next time we can invite you too, eh? Okay, can you start educate around 1 minute left, okay? Can Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention here? Okay, the webinar is about to begin. To begin the webinar, we'll be blessing from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. I would like to invite Mr. Ami Shafiq, okay, to lead the dua recitation. Mr. Ami Shafiq, are you ready now?
Alright, thank you so much Dr. Mansura. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and we'd like to start our prayers with Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Engkau berkatilah dan rahmatilah perjalanan majlis covering climate, COVID-19 and the economy. Sesungguhnya Engkau maha mengetahui bahawa kami di sini ingin menimba ilmu-Mu yang sangat luas bagi mengembangkan ilmu pengetahuan kami sebagai hamba-Mu yang Engkau redai. Engkau berkatilah dan rahmatilah perjalanan majlis pada hari ini. Kurniakanlah kepada kami ilmu-Mu. Sinarilah hati-hati kami dengan cahaya dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati serta mengamalkannya. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi washabihi wa barik wasallam. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Amin.
Amin ya rabbal alamin. Thank you Mr. Shafiq for the doa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning to everyone. Before we start our session, let me introduce myself. I'm Associate Professor Dr. Masrura Main as a moderator for this webinar session. Okay, first of all, I would like to welcome to all of you to this webinar titled Covering Climate, COVID-19 and the Economy. This program is organized to expose the participants about the current issues on COVID-19, climate change and the economy. COVID-19 has resulted in a horrific number of deaths, making people fearful of leaving their homes and generating economic misery unlike anything witnessed in many centuries. However, in a few decades, another global problem will be described in the same way, which is climate change. How all of this will affect the economy and how we can rectify it, all of this will be discussed in this session today. Okay, now for the first speaker, our first speaker for today is Mr. Angga Padwijaya. He is a master. Let me introduce about the Mr. Angga. He is a Master Hotel and Science Management from Universiti Gajah Mada, Jakarta, and currently he is working as a lecturer from Universitas Negeri Semarang in Indonesia under Faculty of Economics. Okay, without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Angga Padwijaya to share his opinion regarding this topic. Mr. Angga, shall we start now?
Oh yeah, thank you, Mas Pura.
Yes.
Oh wait.
Okay, you can see your slide here.
Yeah, I can see the slide. Okay. Okay. Good morning. Hopefully, we are always in good health. First of all, I would like to thanks to the Postgraduate Student Master in Business Economics Department of Postgraduate and Professional Studies Faculty of Business and Management, Universiti Teknologi for this good opportunity for inviting me as a speaker who will speak related to COVID, climate, and economy. Let's start this discussion by discussing the trend of COVID-19 in the world, especially in Indonesia. Maybe we go to the next slide. Okay, the existence of the COVID-19 virus has started since March 2020, which has impacted several countries in Southeast Asia and many countries in this world, including Malaysia and Indonesia. On this slide, I show the graph of the dynamic corona in Indonesia. We can see that there is a tendency to the relate to the mass mobility. So the virus is so related with the mass mobility. Human movement is indeed the motor of economic growth. However, the mass movement also brought the virus into motion, which is even more massive. So there are two things that are contradictory that become a difficult part of being chosen by the government. What is it? Will the government choose the pre-mass movement, but there is a tendency to increase the number of sufferers because of the more number of people moving, starting maybe from trains, maybe from bus, or maybe public transportation, and also for private vehicle. So the movement will lead to the number of virus or infected people increasing. So the government experience dilemma when it comes to letting people travel, and this choice maybe uncontrollable for coronavirus. Therefore, in Indonesia, we have several policies, which we call PSBB, or in bahasa, this is abbreviation for pembatasan sosial berskala besar, or now is changed to PPKM, pembatasan sosial micro. This is policy is basically have one thing in common, to preventing more mass mobility until now, until the December 2021. Quarantining someone or quarantining people to not go to another city to prevent movement from the virus is getting more in this graph. There is a tendency virus spread higher, especially in July or August. This month are the worst months in Indonesia because you can see in the slide there is the number of the virus infected people is so high until 60,000 more in a day. Yeah. And we are grateful that the number of corona cases is decreasing day by day, especially in December in this month, and the number is even less when compared to the early emergence of the coronavirus in the 2020. There's a policy that provides effort to continue to limit mobility. So what I say is because government imposed some policy to control people mobility. In this section, I invest that coronavirus has caused many aspects to be disrupted, especially regarding business because there is no physically mobility. So logistic maybe exchange of goods and services are limited. In particular, for example, tourism, which is disrupted by high level of virus transmission, contributing to tourism and often part of foreign exchange earning maybe the decrease of tourist impact from Indonesia economics and people who work in maybe in the tourism destination. Maybe we go to the next slide. Okay. Continuing the first explanation that there are several things important for implication regarding a coronavirus, such as losing job for employee or decreasing income in the beginning of coronavirus. Government policy in Indonesia avoid to damaging economics and then maybe so many employee getting fired because company cannot pay the salary, maybe almost 50% cutting their income, their salary in private sector, and because the amount of income received by company will impact the salary for the employee. And this also has implication for the medium-sized business sector or MSME, which affected. For example, is decrease in buyers, and there may be even not sell any product because of limitation of people mobility. So maybe if they rent in the mall or shopping center, they lose their expenses because what they rent is cannot be used because this public mobility is restricted from government. So mobility restriction are closed, and this government give this policy because to avoid more in virus infecting people. There is a reduced purchasing power in Indonesia target. Actually, in 2020, Indonesia targeted in economic growth 4 to 5%, which was planned 1 year earlier in 2019, because it reflects there is optimism in economy, but we don't realize and do know that will be decided in March 2020. There is a catastrophic like COVID-19 that there will be a coronavirus that will destroy everything, including the economy. So in fact, Indonesia experienced minus the 5% economic growth in Parallel 2020. And the damage to the country's economy will apparently result in emergence of various government policy to avoid further damage. So the government, through DPPS, or this is a state budget, are aimed to avoid economic damage. The state budget in Indonesia is intended to economic recovery during and after COVID. The formulation to form resilience to economic crisis that may occur. So there is a refocusing of the budget to entire DPPS or to set budget. It is intended for to manage the treatment for patient, yeah, and when they enter the hospital, because of COVID-19 impact many people, so they do not have to pay anything. Even 1 rupiah, even 1 ringgit, they don't pay anything. And then maybe we go to the next slide. Okay, this is stimulus. We talk about the stimulus. Government policy have three priorities: the budget for health sector, and then social safety nets, and business. For example, is SME, and to recover the economy from the corona crisis. So this makes government increase the amount of its expenditure to the state budget in 2020 and also in 2021. So the budget is minus because the government spend more. However, the revenue is not bigger than its expenditure. This means that expenditure in government greater than income. It is mainly from the tech sector in Indonesia. From the previous slide, we understand that budget priorities in the health sector include eliminating all costs for patients infected with COVID-19 to enter hospital. When they declare positive COVID, the patients are free from any cost. This is slightly helpful for the patient with suffering COVID-19 for social protection. And we talk about social safety nets is intended to people who are experiencing economic difficulties, and has been recorded by government. The data is recorded, so government choose from this data to choose who feasible to receive this social safety nets. We understand the population in Indonesia is many times compared in Malaysia. We have so many people, so we need a large amount of social security nets, which is distributed to the public. The value is maybe 100 to 200 ringgit. It's about 3,000 rupiah to 6,000 rupiah. Is similar with 100 to 200 ringgit per month. So living expenses, because the assistance is intended to people who have lost their jobs due to loss of mass mobility, or MSME who decrease in income. And then we go to the next slide. Okay. Let's involve the discussion in handling corona and also climate change. This means that we are linking and put together coronavirus and this how to handling climate change. This means we have discussed the relation to economic policy and climate change. Before I discuss further, I would like to emphasize that Indonesia has commitment to overseeing climate change. So there are not many things, the environmental things that have been obtained by countries around the world. So the related policies is handling corona pandemic is only part of this is deal to with climate change. Apart from this, it said that Indonesia President Joko Widodo, want to set the example that Indonesia is one of the countries that handle climate change. This is shown by the existence of green energy related to the fuel. Maybe we go to the next slide. I give one example. The Indonesia developed fuels that not only depend on fossil, for example, is oil and also coal, but there is a diesel which is combined with fossil fuels using palm oil to produce biodiesel. This biodiesel is sold to vehicles that use diesel fuel with more environmentally friendly fuel. For example, in Kalimantan, Borneo, and Sumatra, including palm oil that is mostly produced in Malaysia, in palm plantation. Also, Indonesia have many production in palm oil. This energy is renewable source to make economic cycle. You can imagine when we only rely on fossil energy to support our lives in the long term. We know that fossil energy has limitation. In the past, Indonesia was country that exports oil in the New Order era, in the era of President Soeharto. And then now Indonesia is not important oil. Okay, I will go to natural resources. We need to new renewable energy with this ethanol. So with renewable energy, we really have ethanol energy. Given an example that there is a power plant from the river. This is example of renewable energy. Back to the fuel and biodiesel. I quote the president's statement that in a news report that need a lot of transformation to encourage a sustainable economy and of course economic development doesn't diminish. So the environment but economic growth, we have to give an economic growth opportunity wherever we do not damage the environment. For example, palm oil from Indonesia and Malaysia is produced from plantation. Maybe the European Union is like do not receive palm oil from Indonesia and Malaysia, and by biodiesel we can utilize more component from biodiesel. With this consists of 70% diesel fuel and 30% of palm oil, meaning the product from domestic market can be absorbed. Okay, maybe we go to the next slide. Okay, at this time I want to clarify that there's a policy that is quite contradictory to the environmental issue related to the policy to provide incentives during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government cut the vehicle taxes with certain criteria. So in Indonesia, there is a tax called DPPS. This is a tax for luxury product like a car or kereta in Malaysia. as a luxury item and the subject certain taxes. So if in the abroad or from the original country, like in Japan, the price of care will be higher in Indonesia than from original country because this tax. So the government cut the tax. When government cut the tax, there is reduce the price to hike of prices, maybe 5 to 10%. Yeah. And then to provide incentive for automotive companies to sell their products because during pandemic the price sold is low, yeah, because the power purchasing power of the people is still great or maybe decrease. According to the data I obtained, there are interesting aspects to discuss. The sale of land is still remains, yeah, compared to the automotive industry. So this is policy that's maybe contradictory with how to handle um, climate change, because when we sell so many cars, this will impact to the pollution. And then we go to the next slide. The government does not clearly regulate policy on the environment sustainability for MSME, yeah, because it can be analyzed at the MSME themselves are not business that pay great attention to the environmental sustainability, because the income is relatively small, so maybe they ignore the principle of environmental conservation. The most important aspect and the most attention paid by environmental sustainability is in the big industry. So government policy during the pandemic, even though they touch the level of environmental conservation, the incentive give to SME maybe it's related to 2 million rupiah, or maybe almost 1,000 ringgit. This is this incentive for from the government to the MSME do not touch the level of conservation, but only just how to survive in pandemic. In startup, yeah, startup maybe young or maybe young people, pay attention in the conservation. Maybe we go to the next slide. Okay, in this section, I want to explain a little about the Indonesia involvement in battery industry for electric cars. This makes Indonesia one of the countries that are interested in investing in batteries. Yeah, these batteries are need to be media for driving cars, or for Indonesia has natural resource that can be used as a raw material in produce a battery. So batteries investment in Indonesia pays a lot of attention because it will imagine as the future of the car, and this is being a future of the industry in automotive. And this industry is do not damage environment because they use renewable energy. So fossil fuel cars become one of the competitors of electric cars. However, price of electric cars in Indonesia is still relatively expensive. Yes. And then we go to the next slide. Batteries are expected to replace fossil fuels, which of course have weakness. They must be charged for a certain duration, yeah? Because before we use, we have to charge, and then their use is limited because they cannot be used directly. We have to charge, and maybe we have to charge it. The the battery industry quite friendly to the environment because do not use fossil fuel. Maybe we go to the next slide. This section explains by battery production, not producing car. Yeah. The battery industry is one of competitive advantage. So we talk about competitive advantage. We don't face to face or maybe have to have with the producer of automotive like Tesla in the electrical car. Maybe in China also produce electric car with relatively affordable, but not yet entered in Indonesia. And it's quite small, yeah, a small car because it has only 2 seats. In my understanding, is in Indonesia will be sold maybe in under 100 million rupiah. Maybe we go to the next slide. So this is my summary. Government policies to handling coronavirus cannot consider only one aspect, that is macroeconomics. However, there are other aspects in macroeconomics that need to be considered. Government emerged fiscal policy to encourage economic recovery and lead to green economy. And next slide. Okay, maybe that's all that I can explore. Maybe we can discuss in the discussion section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angga, for the informative sharing. Okay, Mr. Angga, let me summarize. Mr. Angga had discussed the coronavirus in Indonesia, and then challenge for government or public mobility that can enhance the virus. Several policy to restrict mobility by observe virus transmission. And then coronavirus give impact to income that we have discussed, unemployment, and also government stimulus and policy. And also, Mr. Angga has discussed the green energy incentive for car industry and post-pandemic in Indonesia. That means that need to can build more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient economy. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Angga.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now we move on to our second speaker. Is Madam Ina, teacher American. Okay. She is a social activist at heart and has completed her master program in sustainability science Universiti Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. Her research project on sustainable waste management focusing on community participation during COVID-19 pandemic. That means all related also with Harvard's webinar topic. Currently, she is working as Principal Assistant Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Putrajaya. Besides, she has 16 years of working experience in government of Malaysia with job scope involving policy formation in finance, administration, and human resource. Okay, now let's invite Madam Ina to share her thoughts on recovery in climate, COVID-19, and the economy. Madam Ina, are you ready now? NJK, can you chat, Medina? Yes.
She's having meeting right now. Can we move to Point Sharia first?
Oh, but we have to contact Point Sharia. Is it a meeting until when? Not sure.
She said that she will be available at 10 a.m.
But can you please contact Point Sharia? Is it Point Sharia or not?
Alright.
Sorry, I'm very sorry because
I can present first, Dr. Masura.
okay, thank you very much, Sharia.
Okay.
Okay, before that, let me introduce Sharia first. Okay, student Sharia is a tech speaker. Now, never mind. Let me introduce herself. Okay, she is a senior lecturer in Sharia, Lecturer in Alam, and a Master of in Economics. Sharia is also has credibility to discuss our topics today since her research has been cited in many times and the most cited one in public participation and effectiveness of the number plus feedback day program in Malaysia. It's very popular, these articles, okay? Most of research papers are related to our topic today, okay, which is environmental and consumer behavior. Okay, alright, without further ado, let's invite Mary Sharia to brief about her topic. Okay, Mary Sharia, you ready now?
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Can.
Okay. I would like to apologize to the host here for not handing over my slides because I just finished preparing it in just a few minutes.
It's okay.
Life has been hectic, so I've been
Yes.
with things. Okay. So thank you to the organizer for organizing this interesting topic. I'm going to bring a more specific topic, which is mitigating climate change, lessons from the pandemic. So what can we learn from the pandemic that relates to the environment? That's where I'm heading, all right? Okay, I will start with COVID-19 itself. The most significant impact of COVID-19 would be death, all right? Because other things are also significant, but nothing is more significant than that to everybody and how it affects families, right? So from COVID-19 statistics, I found out that the world has reached 5 million deaths, okay? And when I look at the diagram that I share with you here, it was interesting to look at the different colors. America, the country, the benua lah, okay, benua America has got the highest number of deaths from COVID since its onset. And then next would be Europe, and then Asia Pacific, and the least would be Africa. So I was kind of interested to find out why is it that Americans and Europeans face death and incur COVID occurrences more than other places in the world. So I look into it. This is because I'm myself interested in it. I wish to share with you. And I found that in US and Europe, they were unprepared. They were unprepared and they were reluctant to react in the first place. They were not thinking, they didn't think that COVID is going to be a big issue, right? And that is the reason the COVID becomes bigger in their place. Plus the fact that currently the vaccination rates are still very low in these countries, in some areas, and they have more relaxed social distancing rules. In US and Europe, they also have more older communities. The more modern we become in countries that are more modern, the older the population is because they have better facilities and all. And that is not good with COVID, all right? The older you are, the more you are susceptible to getting COVID. For Asia, it doesn't show a lot of COVID death compared to these Western countries. I found that in Japan, they have good hygiene habits, and that could be contributing. And Asian countries have more humid weather, and also past experiences in some Asian countries led Asian countries to be more prepared in countering this problem. And if we look at Africa, Africa has a more younger population. Maybe it's because they don't get to be very old, all right? Being more rural, they don't get to be older, but the good thing is the more younger they are, the less likely they are to be at risk of death from COVID. And also their rural people, their elderly are mostly in rural areas, and so they are safer. They don't stay together closer from one another, and that helps. However, probably in some African states, there is low testing rate, so that can be an issue. And that's one more thing. African countries have more sunlight than US and European countries, and that helps as well, right? I think that's kind of interesting to know. Currently in Malaysia, we have around 30,000 deaths, right? That's a lot actually, yeah. I start with looking at social impacts of COVID-19. This is what affects us, right? Based on impact on low-income urban families, everybody knows all this. I'm just highlighting it again. We have the impact on unemployment. All right, 25% of household heads are unemployed. This is last year, so it doesn't cover this year. It could be worse if we look at this year. And then, so we have a lot of unemployed from female and male heads. And then there's financial and health problems, savings issues, okay, not protected by EPF, disabilities and chronic illnesses that is caused by COVID as well, malnutrition, and problems with online learning. Okay, so these are some of the social impacts. There are a lot more. I can't highlight all. There's a lot of impacts actually for COVID-19 everywhere, social, economic, and so on. For economic impact, I'm just going to highlight a few here. We're looking again at employment, loss of job. This is again for last year, a loss of job, about 50% have lost their job. And that is pretty significant. Then there's spending pattern changes, as well as savings readiness. Okay, so you can look here that the impact is pretty large, especially for the M40, B40 people. Okay, here is on the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. So the top industries affected by COVID-19 are the hotels and restaurants, education institutions, okay, manufacturing, construction, transportation. So you can understand these deal with people not coming to places anymore, okay? So this is where the revenue declines, but there are some revenue increase as well. So it's not all negative, right? Human health sector has increased, agriculture, retail trade, all right? So these have increased. And in terms of people who lose their job, there's a lot of people who lose their job in agriculture, in the service industry, as well as in construction industry. This is based on some statistics, right? Of course, we have a lot of lost job in the hotel industry, yeah, transportation as well. This is what I have from the statistics. So this is what I show. Okay, what I want to highlight more would be the environmental impact of COVID-19 because we're talking about climate change. So let's look at the environmental impact. During the early onset of COVID-19, we have this data showing that after just 3 months, air quality has improved. This is nitrogen dioxide in the air. And this is one of the greenhouse gases that cause global warming and climate change. So we can see that in different cities in the world, with COVID-19, air quality improves. What does it imply? It implies that with less economic activities, we can improve air quality, right? And there are more evidence from the benefits to the environment from COVID-19 outbreak. So here is in China, the impact is shown in the orange colored areas. So it shows that even within 1 month, the level of greenhouse gases have declined. And this has impact on diseases. So hypertensive disease has fallen, coronary heart disease, stroke, most diseases that are rather chronic have decreased when we decrease our air pollution, right? So that is one thing that we can reflect from COVID, right? It's not that COVID is good, but with reduced economic activities, we improve environment, we improve health. While these impacts are actually more short-term, okay, the reduction in greenhouse gases, all of a lot of these impacts are short-term, because once we go back to our normal activities, the pollution will rise again. Okay, so this can make us think: how do we make it? How do we make the change longer? How do we make the impact more long-term? Okay. However, there's also some long-term impacts of COVID-19. Why long-term? Because we continue to use social distancing practices, wear masks, use the hand sanitizers. So there's a lot more usage of medical facilities related to COVID. So we have long-term negative impact on plastic use, plastic waste, and recycling is stuck at the back. So we're no longer recycling, or we're recycling less because we're trying to be safe. And then we use a lot more soap, hand sanitizers, so a lot more water consumption. So these are some of the long-term impact which need to be taken care of as well, okay? What is important about global warming? We need to stop, or we need to delay the increase in global temperature. What is happening actually? What is happening is we have climate change. The climate change is caused by global warming, and global warming is caused by rising global temperature. So the world's temperature has risen. Right now it's around 1% degrees Celsius rise over the normal average. And is this bad? It is bad. It is bad. I'll show you why it's bad. And it's going to continue to rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and it will continue to rise. And the most problematic gas would be carbon dioxide. Though carbon dioxide is not the worst. And we have some other gases that are worse, such as fluorinated gases. We also have methane. However, the content, the amount of carbon dioxide released from economic activities are large. So carbon dioxide is the main culprit here. And why is it that we are concerned with the increase in temperature of the Earth? There is climate risk when there is an increase in global warming. So here, we can see that if the global temperature rises by 1.5%, you will have 100% increase in flood risk. And then you have a species reduction also contribute to zoonotic diseases, just like COVID. We don't know what actually caused COVID, but it can be related to climate change itself. Okay, so, our food might be affected as well, because if drought occurs, we might not even manage to plant our food. So climate change makes the earth more vulnerable. There are some similarity between the pandemic we have now with the climate change. Okay, we look at both. pandemic will disrupt demand and supply in the market. It disrupts our life. So will climate change, right? Because climate change will cause some countries to become poorer because they can't plant their crops, okay? Climate change and pandemic are also global in nature, okay? Because if we want to reduce the pandemic, it has to be global effort. Both are catastrophic. This is a bit arguable. Some people do not see climate change as a catastrophe because you don't see the impact yet, right? But pandemic is catastrophic. Both seem to be regressive in nature in terms of its impact because the pandemic affects the marginalized, it affects the poor. The climate change will tend to affect the marginalized and the poor as well, more than it affects the rich ones. Both situations will require long-term resiliency, meaning that we have to take action, and the action should be long-term. It shouldn't be short-term, okay? Because a short-term action may not change anything, okay? And it is the tragedy of the commons, meaning that if we do not take action, it will impact the global community. Yeah, actions by individual countries will impact other countries. Climate change is the same thing. Pollution done by United States, India, may affect other countries. All right, those who consume could be those in the rich countries, but those who suffer, who have droughts, who have excess rain, are those in poor countries. So it's the tragedy of the commons. Besides looking at similarity, there can also be differences between the two. We can see that the pandemic is something that requires emergency response, so it is immediate. However, the climate change is a gradual crisis. That's why you don't see it. You don't see action being taken as fast as action for the pandemic. And in terms of occurrences, the pandemic take a few years, but for the climate change to happen, it will take decades. You don't see it happening in 5 years, though. It now has become more transparent. And the other thing is about contagious versus accumulated. Pandemic is a contagious disease. You see the action being taken faster. Climate change is actually accumulated risk. You don't see it happening. You don't see the impact, or you see it, but you don't really think it's that significant, but the risk is actually accumulated. The higher the temperature, the worse it will become for our world in terms of impact of the climate. So this is to highlight to you, where does our global warming come from? It comes from economic activities, 90% of it. It comes from power generation. It comes from overconsumption. It comes from waste of waste generated by producers, by consumers. It comes from transportation. It comes from deforestation, from agriculture and cutting of forests. Okay, all of these are man-made. All of these are economic activities relevant, but these are the same things that cause global warming. Okay, so what is the solution? The solution that we have for the climate change is to make the economy greener. What is the solution for COVID-19? For COVID-19, we have to grow the economy back. All right, since both are happening at the same time, and if we can understand the impact of if we look at the impact of COVID-19, we need to improve the economy as fast as we can. But given that the pandemic has been very it's like a shock to us. It's been very severe, and it's a shock to us. It should give policymakers, firms, individuals in the society some kind of awareness, okay, some kind of awareness, understanding, signal that we can't simply develop our country as we like, right? And that's where the green economy comes in. We do need to have improvement in economy due to the pandemic, due to the impact of pandemic to everybody, especially for economic development. However, if we continue to develop it according to the existing way we are doing, it's going to bring negative impacts to our environment. And thus, the best form of economy would be the green economy. So that's what all countries in the world are proposing right now. We have to move forward, but moving forward, it should be greener. And what I have here is a study which I do not write the reference, but it shows that whatever green technology, green infrastructure, green improvements that we have, green production, green consumption, they actually bring more positive impacts to sustainable development goals than negative ones. So you can look at the like bluish lines, areas in this table. It shows synergies, meaning things that bring positive impact. So you see more of these blue things than the cocoa or chocolate ones, showing that we have more positive impact, okay, in terms of energy demand, energy supply, and land. Okay, this is an example of green infrastructure, benefit of green infrastructure. When we say green infrastructure, we're referring to how cities should be greener, should use reusable energy, should be more green, should protect waterways, you know. So green infrastructure actually brings not only environmental benefits, but it also brings economic as well as social benefits. Okay, and this is an example of green technology. So is green technology expensive? Of course it is. So is it useful, or is it going to be disruptive to the economy? So based on this study, it shows that it has some negative impact in the short run, okay, because of the cost and so on. However, it will have positive impact in the long term. The impact on sustainability, okay, the impact on people in terms of savings, congestion, physical travel, and so on, and impact on overall society's decision making to implement sustainability policy. So, of course, green investment is going to be expensive, more expensive than the conventional ones, but it will have a long-term impact. And why do we need to go for a long-term impact? We have experienced COVID-19, and we can see how not really thinking about impact of our activities can bring severe impact to not only our own community, but the whole world. So we might see the impact such as that for the climate, right? And so we should be more alert, and what our decisions are should be closer to green efforts. There are some challenges for a greener economy. We have to catch up with the technology. Everything is digitalized, so it will take time before we can absorb all these smart technology. And then government's readiness to initiate low carbon policies. This one, government of Malaysia has already planned for some low carbon policies. I'll explain that in a while. There is need for green investments such as solar technology, low carbon transport that is inclusive for all in the society. Currently, it's not quite inclusive because green technology is expensive. So it has to be made cheaper somehow. And then there's society's adaptation, digital skill of workers, creative entrepreneurs, social willingness to change. And that is pretty important, our social willingness to change, to be working from home more than going to office so that we can save on transportation. Okay, so these need adaptation, these needs firms implementation and willingness to accept changes. Yeah? And need for policies that acknowledge the value of natural capital. So the government needs to acknowledge the value of natural resources, the value of protecting the climate, protecting the temperature so that it doesn't rise, right? And this is where the problem lies, because usually government has to choose whether you want to give more jobs to people or do you want to protect the green. Sometimes they conflict with one another, okay? So that is the challenge for the government. And what we need to do is to be more in balance rather than to simply move forward and sacrifice one over the other. In Malaysia, through the latest Malaysia plan, the new Prime Minister has pledged to make Malaysia more carbon neutral. Carbon neutral, meaning that we want to no longer be a contributor to greenhouse. Currently, Malaysia contributes only 0.07% of global greenhouse gas. Doesn't look much, but Malaysia is one of the biggest contributors in Southeast Asia. So Malaysia has pledged to reduce its greenhouse gas emission. So it's really a good thing for the government to take incentive, because even though we say that everybody plays a role, I do believe that the government plays the biggest role, because without government policies, government incentives, firms have difficulty moving forward. Sometimes they do need help, assistance from the government, because green incentives are usually more expensive. Okay, so in Malaysia, it's actually moving towards low carbon society, moving towards circular economy. Circular economy means we try as much as possible not to extract new resources, but instead we try to reuse, reduce, and recycle as much as we can. Try to make use of whatever waste or whatever products that has been used. It has to go back to industry and to be used back as much as possible. So that is circular economy, trying to close the loop. And we should share responsibility in pollution prevention, that this includes the firms as well as individuals in the society, right? And increase our resilience against climate change and disasters, right? So it requires some investments from our government side. In the pledge to reduce greenhouse gases, the country is attempting to move forward with carbon tax and carbon pricing. So a carbon tax will be a tax imposed on the content of fossil fuel. So fossil fuel are the petroleum, the gas that are being used for any processes. So government will move to installing carbon tax, all right? So currently you can see that normally we are given subsidies for our petrol. So this is actually not the right way. For if we were to protect the environment, we should move towards taxation rather than subsidy, okay? In one perspective, it will increase cost, but if our awareness, our value of the environment is high, we will understand why carbon tax need to be imposed. And carbon tax or tax on any environmental for any environmental reasons should be high enough for it to be effective. If it is too low, there wouldn't be incentive by the society to move towards incentive for a better production technique, greener technology, for consumers to switch to better lifestyle, okay? Apart from that, Malaysia is also moving towards implementing carbon pricing. So we want to place price on carbon. So there will be a supply and demand for carbon. All right, usually for carbon pricing to occur, the government will have to plan how much carbon is allowed to be released, and the government will allow, within that bubble, government will allow buying and selling of that carbon. So in general, the whole production of pollution is limited, but within that limit, people can be flexible, the players can be flexible and can buy and sell, all right? And that is more effective, right? A government will have control over how much carbon can be released by firms, okay? I mentioned here that the introduction of carbon pricing is also not only due to Malaysia's commitment to the Paris Agreement for climate change, but also because of our trade. We do trade with the European countries, but the European countries require that we go for more sustainable practices or we lose trade with them. So here we are trying to protect about 24 billion euro trade value. Okay, so it's a positive thing. In terms of our current budget that government has proposed for the coming year, so government has attempted to be more environment friendly. So we have government assistance for SMEs in sustainable and low carbon practices. Government has allocated money for nature conservation. Government has issued sustainable sukuk, right? And again, it's about the voluntary carbon market, which I mentioned just now. The government has also give exemption to electric cars, for import duty, excise duty, and sales tax for electric cars. This is also an effort towards climate change impact. That's it. That's all I managed to say. I'm only talking about government's incentive. However, it is not only the role of the government. Let me go back to the meeting. Hold
Is
on.
it done? Is it done?
Yeah, it is done. I'm trying to go back to the
presentation?
meeting, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, it's done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Done. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your interesting sharing for this today. Okay. So let me summarize. Madam Sharia has discussed regarding the COVID-19 deaths, will reach 5 million. Okay, has discussed also the top industry affected by COVID-19, environmental impact, health and environmental benefits, short-term and long-term impacts. Okay, also she has discussed on global temperature and GHG, climate change make the earth more vulnerable. Okay, and then also she had discussed similarity between pandemic and climate change. 95% global warming sources are man-made from economic activities. Okay, this is all quite interesting also. And then at the same time also she has discussed the solutions. The solution in this problem, green economy brings more positive impact to SDG than negative one. Example, she has mentioned green infrastructure, green technology, carbon tax, and carbon pricing, and many more. Okay, lastly, Malaysia can also touch a little bit about budget 2020 for Malaysian budget that highlights related this portion for expenses in sustainability. Okay, thank you very much for informative knowledge sharing. Okay, now we have to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a break around 15 minutes. And then we continue with the third speaker. Thank you very much.
For participants, you have to, you need to, if you want to get the e-certificate, you can fill in the Google form, okay, the Google form in chat box. Kau. Tapi buka lagi. Kakak baru nak pergi ni. Aku tekan mute tu tak lagi. Belum. Kau tak ada. Lah, mute lah. Miss Ina, Miss, Miss Ina.
Yes, yes, I'm
Ah,
here.
okay, Miss. Okay, okay. Okay, we continue. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So shall we continue now?
Okay,
Shall we
sure.
continue? Okay, okay. Let's have our third speaker. Uh, is Miss I call you Miss Miss
Yes, yes.
Ina Tisha American Deng Okay, let's read your CV, summarize your CV. Okay, Miss Ina is a social activist, okay, and has completed her master program in Sustainable Science UC Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. Her recent project on sustainable waste management, okay, that focusing on community participation during COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, this is what that related to our topic today, our discussion. And then currently she's working as Principal Assistant Secretary, Ministry of Tourism. Okay, Arts and Culture, Putrajaya. Besides, she has 16 years of working experience in government of Malaysia with job scope involving policy formation, finance, administration, and human resource. Okay, without further ado, so now we invite Miss Ina to share her thoughts on covering climate, COVID-19, and the economy. Okay, are you ready, Miss Ina?
Thank you, Madam Mastura. So first of
Okay,
all, thank
Kak.
you for inviting me to share. It's not more of a lecture, but more of a sharing session. Because I believe that, as Madam Mastura has mentioned, I am very passionate about community involvement. So I believe that everyone should understand what is tourism and
Yes.
culture is all about, and how it is been severely affected because of COVID-19, but what are the measures that the government are doing in order to restore tourism and culture in Malaysia? Okay, so let's proceed. So first of all, you have to understand, are you guys seeing my presentation?
Yes, you can see your slide.
Okay, all right. So
Yes, can see.
these are the two policies currently in place under the purview of Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. So we have the National Tourism Policy 2020 to 2030. It was launched in 2020. And a recently launched policy is Dasar Kebudayaan Negara, or National Cultural Policy. It was just launched 26th of October. So these two policies will be the guiding principles for us in the government, as well as our departments and agencies, as a guide to formulate our planning, our programs, so that it is in line with these two policies. And these two policies are mapped out according to the shared prosperity vision, or wawasan kemakmuran bersama. So in the most important thing of all is shared prosperity. So our policies are aligned towards that as well. So this is the presentation outline. So we have, I have just mentioned the policies in place, and we'll look back a bit on tourism, which is a vital industry. We are also having a little bit on the thrust under the cultural policy, which has the motto of developed nation, cultured citizens. We'll delve into loss of income due to COVID-19 and the livelihoods affected, and of course, the road to recovery, and finally, a call for action. Okay, let us start. As you can see, tourism is a vital industry in Malaysia. So these are the top 5 countries that are involved in the arrival. So you see our nearest neighbor, Singapore, has the highest arrival to Malaysia, since we're just across the causeway. Secondly is Indonesia. Then we have China, and Thailand, and finally Brunei. So what we did was a survey, and this is the findings in 2019. We haven't released the 2021 yet. So when they are here, the main activities that these tourists are engaged in, of course, number one is shopping. Then they like sightseeing in the city, visiting historical sites, visiting museums, and finally visiting islands and beaches. The industry, which covers tourism as well as culture, in 2020 it was at 135 billion ringgit and is expected to rise to 165 billion ringgit in 2021. That is a large number and quite alarming. So who are the most affected? Of course, the travel and tour operators, because during the pandemic, we had the movement control orders. So we were stuck in our homes. We couldn't go to work physically. So of course, the tour operators, the tour agents are severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as transportation. You can see of the workers, cruisers were unable to, operate, taxis, bus, trains, motorcycles, everyone was contained in their homes. So transportation was another industry affected as well. And then, of course, accommodation. We have hotels, apartments, homestays, chalets, vacation homes, rest houses. All these were severely impacted as well. But the government tried to, assist these hotels by turning the hotels into quarantine centers. Uh, it doesn't help that much, but it is, some sort of initiative to not stop the hotel industry in its tracks. And of course, excursions, we had a drop in our visitors to museums, theme parks, zoos, and the meetings and conventions scheduled in Malaysia was unable to be conducted. The retail stores, culture and art centers, and sports and recreational centers were impacted as well. So these are the livelihoods affected. So directly or indirectly, it has affected 3.5 million jobs in Malaysia. Or you can roughly translate it, 1 in every 4 jobs in Malaysia was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see there, sales, employment, wages, taxes, and everyone in this quadrant here, automobile, travelers, and all the retails and foods, they were all affected by the pandemic. And citizenship tourism workforce, because we had 88.6% were our own local citizens working in the tourism workforce, and only 11.4 were the non-citizens, with 30% executive level, while 70% was the non-executive level. So these are the numbers. I won't bore you with the details. Probably you can look it up in DOSM reports. So let's go on. Okay, so all is not lost. Yes, we agree that the pandemic has severely impacted the whole ecosystem of travel. But we have some sort of a roadmap or a bit of a tweaking in our action plans. So what we're trying to do now is, as you can see on the screen, want to have the traveler's dream. What it means is that when these travelers are trapped in their own homes, in their own countries, you use the online platforms, excuse me, to create a virtual experience. So now the government are spending funds to create virtual museums, virtual, to get that you are trying to entice these tourists so that once the borders are being opened, or the COVID-19 virus is contained, or we have a measure of controlling it, we're trying to entice and come to Malaysia, once the borders are open, come to Malaysia. So you guys can do a part of this as well. So since we have opened the borders between states, so why not spend some time at our tourist attractions, our heritage buildings, and because you guys are the younger generation, are so good at virtual platforms, so do short promos of our tourism sites. It will be a great help to our industry. So then we're also moving towards booking online. So we're using cashless payments and making online platforms more friendlier so that people can plan ahead. And, once everything is in place, they can put in their deposit. So it's one way to help our tour operators as well. And then we have preparation. So the trip is organized through artificial intelligence or platforms. So you have this customized travel itinerary and in small groups. So these are also a way to push our tour operators from moving that traditional way of doing things, that traditional itinerary, you can give choices to your potential clients. So these are the itineraries that you can choose, or you may be able to propose your own itinerary and they will fit accordingly. And all this can be done now through AI. Finally, and then we have airports. So we are trying to move towards touchless technology. We have biometric screen so that it reduces contact, because we know that the COVID-19 virus is spread through physical contact and all that. And then we have in-flight, you can check in online, self drop-off, and we need to implement this flexible refund policy because since this pandemic is a bit unpredictable, so we should have this flexible refund policy in cases where the country are not allowing travel. So the operators are able to provide a refund and provide security to the tourists. And then destination wise, the hotels and tourism products are promoted with cleanliness, hygiene, and health safety recognition. We also implement accreditation and, of course, that flexible refund policy. Because once we did the survey, it was a main concern among the potential tourists that they don't want to spend money, putting in deposits and all that. And suddenly, when there's travel restrictions, they're losing their money outright. So we're trying to avoid that. That's why we are telling the operators have this flexible refund policy and state it clearly so that it gives a sense of security to your potential tourists. And finally, post trip. Post trip is it's something very simple, but it's very effective. So we want to give these tourists a feeling of wanting to come back for more, because they can usually come to Malaysia, travel an average of maybe 1 week of being in Malaysia. So we want them to come back the next time and keep coming back, and as well as promoting to their friends, their families, and they can do this without um, the use of any money, because now we have social media and online forums where people can just promote Malaysia as somewhere that you can really relax, or maybe you feel safe because we have our SOPs in place. So this is how a post trip is important. So next, road to recovery, it stands on two pillars: resilience and adaptability. So if a country or industry is resilient enough and it is adaptable, then it can survive this pandemic or whatever challenges that come ahead. So how do we promote resilience and adaptability? There's these four quadrants. Demand evolution. So it is no longer the traditional way of traveling. So you can always have a niche. You can address tourists in small groups, and you should really look into domestic and regional vacations and really go for outdoor activities, because this is one of Malaysia's strengths, and have proactive communication. So this is where you use social media. Let's say Tourism Malaysia promote something on their Facebook page. So they should also not only just post, also review the comments and then address whatever issues that arise, because it is an open communication. Therefore, this is how we improve ourselves. Next, we use innovation and digitization. This is where you use integration of new technologies, the contactless technology, and increase security online by cybersecurity. And of course, the third quadrant is one of the most important, especially during the pandemic, is because of the health and hygiene concerns. So now we have SOPs telling the hotels or operators that sanitation is a new norm. So you need to have everything in place: your hand sanitizers, your thermal scanners, and everything needs to be sanitized. Not only providing hand sanitizers, but to sanitize your premise. And this is also a part of our accreditation. we have added this point into the accreditation criteria. So because all this is to increase tourist confidence. If they are not confident, they don't feel safe, then they are not coming to Malaysia despite our efforts, despite what we have to offer. And finally, we're trying to achieve sustainability, because it's one thing to be, suddenly becoming very famous, a boom in your presence, but the end of the day, it needs to be sustained. And this is why we need to conserve and preserve our sites, our culture. And it is not only for grabbing tourists to come to Malaysia, but it's also to reduce poverty and promote equality. Because one thing good about tourism and culture is that these two elements, they are part of the community, so that the community themselves can take care of these sites and the culture there, and be involved in economic generation. Okay, next. So these are also our strategic plan in order to overcome the struggles that we faced during COVID-19. So first plan is to strengthen governance capacity. So governance is important, and this is the part where the government plays the most important role. So we have these two policies in place. Now it is a matter of implementing the strategic plans, as well as monitoring and reviewing if we need to change or maybe re-strategize our policies. Next, we want to foster economic development. And to foster economic development, you need to have everything in place. And it is not only the responsibility of the government alone, but it's also the private sectors, there's also communities and individuals. The role of the citizen has increased, especially during this pandemic, because everyone is now self-aware that I have a part in the recovery efforts. Next, we are trying to move towards smart tourism. So smart tourism is something, it's not rocket science. Smart tourism is, very fragmented and very focused tourism products, so that people are enticed to come. And if they can't come physically, we can entice them to come virtually and put it in their bucket list and plan ahead. So once everything is in order, or they can just come and live the experience physically. And the fourth strategic plan is to enhance visitor sophistication. So basically, this is we just don't want visitors to just come and go, but they need to spend money here and increase the economic cycle, so that everyone benefits from their visit. And then we are also trying to practice sustainable and responsible tourism. Basically, what this means is that tourism, I'll give an example like islands. So people come to Malaysia to enjoy our beaches as well as our marine life. So we are trying to educate them as well, so that we have coral planting efforts, and we are trying to go for sustainability, and people need to respect their surroundings. So this is the small elements that you put in the product, the tourism product as well. And of course, finally, to upskill human capital, because now we're not just doing it the traditional way, but also the human capital involved in tourism and culture should also be open to more online platforms. And it is no longer an excuse saying that I don't know how to do it. So this is the time to learn and to get more skills, especially in online platforms, because we understand it's a new concept for some, but it is either you do or die. Okay, so before we go for recommendations and all that, the call for actions, we need to know, where are we now? So currently, high tourist arrivals and low sustainability. So this is the current status, unfortunately. So we have people coming in, but once they come in, they don't actually come back for more. So there's a low sustainability in our tourism products. So the indicators in 2020, contribution to the GDP was 14.1%. Tourism receipts was 12.7 billion and tourist arrivals 4.3 million, sorry. So we're planning in 2025, it will be high value tourism in parallel with sustainability, because everything is about sustainable development goals. So everything should be in line with that. So what we target for 2025 is 14.7 to 15.6 in terms of GDP contribution, 47 to 77 billion in terms of tourism receipts, and tourist arrivals of 16 to 22 million. So what's next for 2030? This is the long term. So we want tourism a competitive and sustainable sector with 16.5 to 17 contribution to GDP, would increase it by so much there, 120 to 138 billion, and tourist arrivals of 26 and 30 million. So will this be achievable? We only time will tell, but we're definitely working towards it. So call for action. This is what I was explaining just now. So this is more detailed with the strengthened governance capacity. We want to create this synergistic dynamic between stakeholders, including the state governments, industry players, and so that we can harness their tourism core skills. Next, we're trying to foster economic development. So this is one thing that we're seriously looking into, to create these special tourism investment zones so we can drive tourism that is high valued and very innovative in terms of products and services. Then the smart tourism is the opportunities that come with Industrial Revolution 4.0. So we should really tap into that. And we need to enhance tourist demands by increasing the depth of tourist experience. Like I said, they need to come here and immerse themselves with our tourism products and come back for more. And the fifth one, practice sustainable and responsible tourism. So it is, you want tourism to play its role as a catalyst for economic development. And finally, upskill human capital, where we deliver a reputable service culture nurtured by human capital development. All right, so this is what the government is trying to do right now, but what is for us as citizens to do? So this is the call for action for citizens, and that's me and you and everyone else in Malaysia. So what the most important thing of all is you need to travel responsibly. So you follow your SOPs, you make sure you get your vaccinations and booster shots, so that travel will be something of a safe place instead of bringing fear to our travelers. And what you can do is you revisit and promote Malaysia. You go to these places, maybe you've been there before, but you should revisit them and then promote them. You don't need to bring out flyers and all that. You use your social media platform. And what you can also do is to support local products and handicrafts. We have so many beautiful handicrafts, but sometimes Malaysians, we don't appreciate the artists that create these products. So we really need to look into maybe where our Malaysian batik instead of wearing our neighbors' batik. So this is the small steps that we can do. And finally, rediscover our arts, culture, and heritage. Please do this. I know you are the younger generation and you're looking towards the future, the technologies, but you need to understand where we come from and who we are. So this is where arts, culture, and heritage play its role. So go and travel and re-immerse yourself in what Malaysia has to offer. With that, thank you very much, and I end my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your informative sharing, Miss Ina. Okay, let's yeah, summarize what Miss Ina has discussed just now. Okay, she has discussed Malaysian policy, okay, dasar kebudayaan negara 2021. Okay, and then she also has discussed the tourism, a vital industry in top 5 arrivals. First, Singapore, Indonesia, China, Thailand, and Brunei. She has discussed also the culture, developed nation, culture citizen from Teras 1 until Teras 7. She has discussed and explained loss of income due to COVID-19, livelihood affected directly, indirectly benefits, that relatively 3.5 million jobs in Malaysia affected. Then she has shared the road to recovery for future travel experience ecosystem, demand evaluation, health and hygiene, innovation, digitization, and sustainability. Also, she has discussed how, okay, this last one, how to strengthen the government capacity, foster economics, development, and then towards smart tourism, enhance visitor sophistication, sustainability, responsible tourism, and lastly, and upscale human capital. Actually, this is a good information to us, okay, that related tourism in government sector as well. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Ina. Now we continue with the questions and answer session for every panel. Okay, we welcome to the participant to ask the questions. Participants, question number one. Question number one come from.
Hello. Hi. I have a question. My name is Shamim. I have a question I would like to ask for Mr. Angga. In your opinion, what is your estimation for a country to recover from its economic downturn? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Angga.
I have to answer directly or maybe waiting for the another question. Bu Mastura. Hello.
Yeah. Then you can answer now. Yeah.
Directly. Okay. Firstly, about the recovery during the pandemic, we can we have to maybe the prediction is maybe in 1 to 2 years later, because we really giving an effort to the how to escape from this pandemic, and then several policy is imposed by government. For example, like that. First of all, we have a pressing dilemma. What's the dilemma? The Omicron variant is appear, so the statement of the president is to postpone overseas trip for Indonesian citizen. Open gate for foreigner means open new variants come. However, closed gate for foreigner means no exchange in economics. So what recovery the government do? Firstly is quarantine for 10 days for foreigner or Indonesian citizen for overseas, and then impose fiscal policy to give a tax reduction, and then give cash money for the people maybe in the maybe who do not have much money, because they can shop and maybe ensure the economic turnaround go. So maybe we are still having effort. Maybe in 1 to 2 years later, we can give a um, full recovery. Thank you. That's all, Bu Mastur.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angga. Any other questions from participants?
I do have a question. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Abbas,
Yeah, hi, my name is Abbas. I have some questions for Miss Ina.
Oh, okay, Miss Ina. Okay, Miss Ina.
Yeah. What is your opinion on the new COVID-19 variant Omicron and how it will affect Malaysia tourism recovery?
Okay.
With the basic biology information that I have, it doesn't matter what strain COVID-19 comes in, whether it's Omicron or maybe there's, because it, like any other viruses, is going to mutate and it's going to be, resilient towards whatever vaccines that we've developed now. But there's always a way that we can overcome it. But I feel that in terms of safety measures are concerned, Malaysia has everything in place. The SOPs are in place. So it is a matter of enforcement as well as people following these SOPs. So whatever strain that comes our way, it is going to be the same way of developing. It has Omicron has unfortunately created a sense of fear among our citizens as well as tourists. But like everything else, we are prepared for it, and the government are trying to do the necessary, the needful in order to keep Malaysians safe. Okay, thank you.
I say thank you, Miss Ina. Okay, any other questions?
Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
This is Ernisha. So I do have a questions for Madam Shaharia. Madam, what do you think about the green investment, and does this green investment really help to improve economy, especially during this COVID-19? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ernie. Okay, about green investment, does it help to improve our economy? Well, we can't avoid going for green investment, and investments are necessary to improve our economy during this COVID time. So what's best other than to go for green economy? It is going to be costly, it's going to be challenging because we need to understand a lot of technologies, improve this digitalization, and we need to have skillful workers. We need to educate the people more. But yes, as I mentioned in my slide just now, the green technology, green economy is the way forward. It is the way forward, and we need to look at the climate change as one more issue that we have to face, because if not, we might just face difficulty or hardship, just like we face hardship for the pandemic. Even though pandemic is comes without warning, and we don't know that it will come. The implication is global. So similar to that, the implication for climate change is global. It will be more impactful because it is accumulative. It will affect the marginalized, the low income countries. So it is very imperative that we go for green technology. Whether or not the country or the less developed countries are ready or not, we need to have cooperation from all countries. The rich countries actually are assisting the less developed countries. But every country now realizes the need to move towards green technology. We are moving to that. The pandemic has actually increased our awareness for the need for green technology and green economy. We just can't sit back and say we can't do it, because are we ready to face another hardship just like the pandemic? And this one is also inevitable. If it affects our climate, it affects the weather. We can't change. We can't help if it affects our weather. All right, because it's beyond our control. What we can control is the activities that we do. And yes, we need to go for it. And also one thing, the pandemic has helped us to move towards that direction actually, because with pandemic we are working from home. We have now known that we can work from home. We can be more mobile. we can use more of a shopping method of merchandising, of selling and buying. So yes, we just have to go forward with a green economy. Okay, Ernie?
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation, Madam Shahriah. Okay, let's other questions from participants.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
I'm Nurain. I would like to ask Miss Ina opinion. In order to sustain green environment, does it really help in economy boost? Thank you.
Can I have your question again, please?
In order to sustain green environment, does
Mhm.
it really helps in economy boost?
Economy what? Boost?
Boost.
Yes.
Boost. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Economy
thank
boost.
you for your question. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the key selling points of Malaysian tourism is our nature. So in order to entice people to come and say that our environment is pristine and you can enjoy nature when you come traveling to Malaysia, we need to sustain and provide the best green environment possible. So I believe that any efforts in preservation and conservation of the environment would be a great boost for our economy, because in terms of economy, you can't just see it in one view. In terms of economy, you can always see it in a multiple effect kind of situation, because you have the green products and then you say that maybe we have the green services. You come here and bathe in our forest and all the whatever the new fangled things that they have now. And then you come and say, okay, so our furniture is made from sustainable timber. We can say that, oh, this handicraft is made from sustainable measures. All this combined together, it creates an ecosystem that generates economy. So I believe like green technology or green tourism, whatever is green and it's sustainable, it is a great economic booster. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Ina, explanations. Now, any questions, participants?
I have this question from Hazim in the chat box.
Oh,
So
chat box.
Hazim here. Hazim asks, why does Malaysia is not that popular compared to Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia? Is it due to the lack of marketing being done by the government?
Puan Ina,
Lack of
okay.
marketing, I don't think it's a lack of marketing, but it's more of what the country has to offer and how it projects its image towards the tourism industry. For Singapore, you have the haven for shopping. So since it's concentrated on one niche, they have this this disadvantage because they only rely on shopping as a main attraction. With now we have online shopping, so this could be a way that maybe Singapore would have to find other avenues to promote itself. With Thailand, Thailand is our greatest in terms of competition, because more or less the products are almost similar. It's not similar, but almost similar, and they are really going for that nature tourism type of niche market. So we are competing with them. And Indonesia, we are losing to them not because of lack of promotion, it's because it's more affordable to go and travel Indonesia. Even Malaysians love to go to Indonesia to travel. So that is their selling point, because it's more affordable there. You get more value for money because you feel like a millionaire basically when you go to Indonesia with the billions of rupiah that you spend there. So Malaysians, you can't, oh, I come to Malaysia, I'm spending 1 million ringgit. That's not going to be possible, but you can do that in Indonesia. So we're losing that. That's their selling point. So there's no right or wrong way to promote your country. as long as we're going for that sustainable and natural way of doing things in Malaysia. Thank you, Hazim. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions, participant? Participant, any questions? You can ask question to Mr. Angga, Madam Shahria, or if you want to ask question to Ms. Ina also, you can. Participant.
If you don't want to ask any questions, maybe while all of us as panels have given you, you know, the very, very simple and very easy to understand information, you can always give your opinion. Or maybe ideas on how we can, as for me, how can we improve our tourism industry then?
I think that's a question for me here in the chat.
Yes, yes, Madam Shahria.
Doreen was asking, I would like to ask, do I have any ideas on how to minimize the use of plastic bags?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. First, I definitely support government regulation. Okay, government must improve the regulation. However, regulation need not just be regulation that fines people. People don't like to be fined. They always wait for the time when they can pay their fines in discounts. So it's going to work. It's not going to work if they're going to fine this to the public. But I think if government goes more into incentive-based policies, okay, we already have in place some incentive-based policies like the no plastic bag policy, where if you want to go to the shop and you're going to use the plastic bag provided by the shop, you have to pay 20 cents. Okay, the thing is, 20 cents is not much to us, right? It's too cheap. Even though we have pandemic, we still waste money. 20 cents, you still find 20 cents on the roadside. So it doesn't mean much to some people. So there is a state, Penang. Penang has increased the rate to 1 ringgit. And the government need to really be very strong, actually, to impose such measures. So we have a strong government, pro-environment government in Penang. So I'm hoping that the other states in Malaysia will follow suit, increase the rate, all right? By increasing the rate, people will realize more the need to change, and they have to bring their own bags. And sometimes the thing is, it's not about the charge, but it's about changing your lifestyle. People don't like to change. People don't like to be bothered. So if you have been forced in the first, well, maybe in the first year or so, it will be like something you don't like, but you get used to it and it becomes a lifestyle change. So lifestyle change is necessary. Sometimes people don't like it, and so government need to support with environmental subsidies, give subsidies. For plastic bag, I think plastic bag need to go, cannot be used. It should be replaced with reusable bags. So companies will need to promote reusable bags and support the government's effort as well. All right? Yeah. And find other ways. There are other measures for plastics that are not plastic bags, such as plastic bottles and all. We can use the buyback policy, meaning that if you take the plastic, if you buy bottles, if you buy drinks, carbonated drinks, Coca-Cola or so on, we should be able to return it in some ways and get money from it. Right now, the value of plastics is very low. So that's why plastic recycling doesn't interest much from the public. Doesn't attract the public. But government has to find some ways to attract through incentive. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Bidin Sharia, for your explanation. Let's others question, participant.
Madam Mastura, if I may add on the plastic bag issue.
Okay, of course.
Okay, so Nurain, you know the first thing, how to minimize the use of plastic bags. We as the consumer needs to, stop using plastic bags. That's the end of it all, because we as consumers must make this decision whether we want to be a part of the solution or we want to be the part of the problem. So you can impose 20 cents, 1 ringgit, whatever, but if you feel that, yeah, I can still afford to buy plastic bag, but why don't you think that I'm doing my small part to help the environment? So let's do that. Let's start not using plastic bags and demand our local governments to stop using plastic bags like we did for polystyrene. So now we have a lot of local governments are banning the use of polystyrene. So maybe we should do that, use the power of the individual. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Participant, any question? We are waiting you to ask questions.
Hi, Doctor. Hi, Mr. Angga. I would like to ask you a questions.
Okay.
There's a lot of policy or incentive that has been imposed by government, especially this during this COVID-19. And do you think which policy or incentive that is the best or the best that has been imposed by the government to help the citizen to face this pandemic? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think so many policy they imposed by government. However, when we say what is the best, I think there is some like what is plus and minus from this policy. For example, in government given policy like in incentive like cutting price or maybe tax reduction, maybe give some people to buy more. However, if for example like in my example in a car industry or automotive industry, if they buy more of the car, so maybe the pollution is rise. Yeah, the pollution is rise. However, and if when government give maybe some incentive to the poor people, yeah, in this country, where they they will be give continuity to pay give more power purchase power to to their life. So I think there is a plus or maybe minus for this policy. What's the conclusion is what what is the policy they give to the government is the aim, yeah, the mainly aim is to we escape from this pandemic and being the economical stability for this country. I think that's all for Ernisha.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angga. Okay, any questions, participant? Here, Miss Ina wrote here. Hi there. We are happy. Okay, one question. Okay, we have one question. As all the panelists know that in the chat, Malaysia usually reuse the plastic bag such as from supermarket. Can you suggest anything that can substitute the plastic bag we use ordinary in home? Do you think that the usage of plastic sampah is one of the contributing to increasing of plastic usage? This one, any panel lah that willing to answer. In the chat
Let
box, the
me,
questions.
can I start, Madam Mastura?
I can, of course can.
Okay. Okay, to Faf Sakina, thank you for your question. So let me share what I'm doing currently at home. So there's yes, of course we need to use the plastic sampah, but usually we use the ones that we already gotten from from our shopping and all that. But what I do at home is that I separate my trash. Meaning to say that I have a special bin for general waste and then I have a special bin for food waste, which I turn into compost. And I also separate the plastics, the aluminiums, and paper. You see, I'm a very environmentalist at heart, so I walk the walk since my dissertation is on sustainable waste management. So I believe that each of us has a part to play, and it's not only eases the work for our sanitary workers, but it's also, you know, you value your trash more because you become more. I don't simply buy stuff now because every time I go to the supermarket and I want to buy, I will look what type of packaging that this product has. So is it going to increase the waste that I produce? So all this becomes, you become more aware when you start separating your trash. You will like have this self-auditing mechanism that you do internally and say, okay, I need to reduce my waste. So maybe you can start with that. Separate your trash and you can see, oh, so this is how much I'm generating. So I will try to cut down gradually. I hope that answers your question, Afa.
Let me add on to what Miss Ina was saying. So I totally agree with Miss Ina, and I'm just as environmentalist as she is. So I'm also one of those who separate our waste at home. If you're saying that you need the plastic so that it becomes plastic sampah at home, how many plastic sampah do you need actually? All right, if you continue to take a plastic from the grocery stores or any shopping malls, for one trip, you might accumulate 5 to 10 plastics at the same time. You see how many plastic will you collect? So what I do is I always bring my own recyclable bag, reusable bag. I don't use plastic. And the first thing to do if you want to reduce plastic is get plastic out of your sight. So make a policy to have no plastic at home. So if plastic enters, it will be very minimal and without your consent. Sometimes it just arrive, maybe from your neighbor, you know. If possible, do not take plastic at home. Do not bring it home. And once what you do for food, I usually use the tipin, you know, mangkuk tingkat. I have that a lot, and all my children are using mangkuk tingkat. It could be plastic mangkuk tingkat, but you are reusing it. It's not like the single-use plastic, all right? And another one, I also do not have garbage at home. I very seldom have garbage. Paling banyak pun a very small bag seminggu sekali. All right? What do I do with my garbage? I separate them. On Sundays, ada lori yang mengutip kitar semula which saya dah asingkan and I will send together. And for my food waste, I also turn them into compost, natural compost, and I use it for fertilizing my garden. So there is no waste at home for me. It's almost zero waste actually, alright? Cuma kadang-kadang kita tak boleh elak daripada kedai, kadang-kadang nak beli something tu adalah benda yang dalam small plastic yang kotor. Well, only those things yang kadang-kadang masuk my house, tapi that's very minimal. So all of you students will have to change your mindset and try to remember why you have to save the environment. You have to value the environment for you to start making effort. If you don't value your environment, you will find your effort to be too much. So you have to change it. Make it a habit. Okay.
Maybe
Okay,
I will
thank you.
have the answer
Okay.
from Miss Ina and Miss Ria about plastic bag. So plastic bag is forbidden in some big city in Indonesia. If we shop to the convenience store or retail store, for example in Indomaret or Alfamart, or maybe in Malaysia similar with 7-Eleven. And because plastic bag is forbidden, so it drives the consumer to bring their own bag or maybe recycle bag. So it is minimize plastic pollution and keep the nature. So the plastic bag is maybe it's removed and instead use of a paper bag. Even though paper bag is not environmental friendly, however, it can be recycled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for the explanation, the informative sharing session from all the panels. So lastly, I would like to ask any question from participants?
One more question from Nur
Oh, one more, yes.
Yeah,
From
Motek,
feedback.
do we have any incentives for business tourism owners, especially that's affected from this pandemic? Yes, we have a few incentives. We have a few recovery packages that we provide to our tourism operators. We have provided in terms of cash to our tour guides, and for homestay operators we've given each homestay around 700 ringgit per homestay for them to at least sustain their management, because homestays are usually very small enterprises. So 700 ringgit was found to be they found it very helpful for them to sustain their business and do some small repairs in preparation of people coming into their homestays. And what else? Yeah. Oh yes, we've also given rebates in terms of electricity bills, water bills to our hotels, to our tour operators. So these it appears to be small, but it really helps, and they really appreciate what we're trying to do, because Motec, because the government now is focusing on vaccination and other health measures. So the money coming into Motec would not be substantial enough to help everyone sustain, but we do our bit to help. So I hope that answers your question, Nurain.
Okay, now we have another one question. I think the last one, yeah, from Amir Borhan. Oh, what the question
there's
here?
two.
Too long question. Wait. Okay, I want to ask the government reduce the production of transportation such as car. Is there any impact towards the reduction of gas emission and economics? Any panels want to answer these questions? Related transportations in chat box from Amira Burhan.
Yeah, the question.
Okay.
Yeah, the question was.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. The question was, if government reduce production of car, is there an impact towards reduction of gas emission and economics? Yes, of course. We are supposed to move towards more of public transportation. That is the better way compared to every family have several cars. That is more sustainable. So the policy towards public usage will take some time for people to adapt and for government to really provide the basic infrastructure. So government is continuing to provide more of MRT, LRT, and improve on the bus system. And will it if have an impact on the economy? Yeah, if one sector is being reduced, negatively affected, another will grow. The bus sector will grow, the bus industry will grow. Of course, probably maybe car industry and dia punya accessories might be affected, yeah, but there is trade-off there. But yeah, in terms of reduction of gas emission, yes. To drive a car probably have individual emission, but if you go in a bus, so 30 people in a bus, meaning it's only one bus compared to 30 cars, right? So of course there is positive impact on emission, yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Shahria. Okay, now Mr. Angga, I got one question for Mr. Angga here. Do you think people behavior will change as a result of the current pandemic in ways that positive or negative impact to the environment? This one
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. From Nur Islin. Sure, absolutely. Change, maybe positive or negative, is depend on the individuals. However, the main discussion is our behavior is change. Not meet people like now. We do some webinar. We can do in Indonesia or in Malaysia. We do not meet each other. However, we are connected. For example, if we avoid public transportation because we maybe afraid of maybe from coronavirus, we afraid of infected and so many others. So I think positive or negative is depend on individuals. Maybe we have changed our behavior. We rely on online purchasing rather than we go directly go to market
Shopping.
like shopping. I think that's all. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Angga. The last question here to Miss Ina. Is it Miss
Okay,
Ina?
so a question from Afika. She wants to know whether Malaysia is recovering positively in 2021. So I think you can see it for yourselves, the increase in travel in 2021 once the MCO was lifted and we are allowed to travel interstates. So it all comes down to us feeling secure or safe enough to travel. Like I said, you need to travel responsibly. So insist that your travel operators follow the SOPs, you yourself follow the SOPs, and it is in a positive manner. We are recovering slowly but surely. You have an increase of people going taking packages, travel packages. We're having people who are buying more handicrafts. So it is in the right direction. So it all depends on us citizens as well to help our local operators and local handicrafts. So please do your bit. Every bit helps because we're all in this together. We're facing the pandemic as a united nation. So it is a positive development, I believe, in unity as well. So let's do our part. Thank you.
I think this is the last question dah we can accept from Nohani Zakia. I would like to, as we know, online shopping has increased during the pandemic. So the use of plastic bag packaging, do you think that it is possible for the government to implement policy to use reusable packaging for the courier service? Any panels? This is the last question dah. Yeah. Is it government to implement?
Implementation, but in form of policy will probably take time. Okay, but you can see that some sellers, they actually reuse packaging, right? What they send to you, they take boxes from somewhere else. You know, they throw in their bag.
True.
But it saves their cost as well, actually, if they can do that. You know, but yeah, some things are difficult to find. Yeah, it will take some time for government to do that. But I think I'm not sure, is it Malaysian government or Selangor government is moving towards a zero single-use plastic policy. We have that coming in 2030, I guess. So it takes some time because the sellers of plastics, plastic packaging, they are in that industry. So we have to give them some time to find what they can produce instead of producing plastic that are not environment friendly. They have to find substitute to their industry, to their profit. So I think such policies take some time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Sharia.
Madam Mastura, can I add something?
Okay, Miss Ina, I want to add. Yeah.
Okay, so since I am in the government, so if I could explain to Hani, the government must be seen fair to everyone. Because if we start implementing every policy to, let's say, we're going to implement a policy to ban plastics, then what's going to happen to the plastic industry? So we need to be fair to all. If what you can do is that Some sellers are very accommodating. You can just give them a chat saying that can you please send my product in reusable packaging, and they will oblige your request. So I don't feel that the government should implement every policy on the land, and we're not giving freedom to our own industry to grow. So bear that in mind, that not everything needs to be to be politicized, because we need to give freedom to our industry as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ina. Okay, now, all right, ladies and gentlemen, now we finally have to come end of our webinar. Okay, we would like to thank you again to the panels, okay, for the informative and interesting sharing topic, your thoughts, your ideas, okay, and also to the audience for active participation today, okay. Hopefully this sharing session will be beneficial for everyone, okay, and I as a we would like to apologize, okay, if any shortcomings, okay, all the good one from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, and the weaknesses come from us. Okay, we end our webinar session with Surah Al-As. Okay, thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we end, we have a photo session with panels and all the participants. Can someone take a picture? JK, can you show your face, participant, if possible? We want to take a photo now, participants. Okay. Okay.
Okay, now I will take the picture.
Okay, wait. Anu Nabila, Aira Yasmin, Aina Nadia. Comel-comel semua. Aina Syazlina, Aina Nadia, Syahira, Syamsuddin. Wait. Afaf, Sakina, Aina Nadia, Ain, Aimi Zawani, Ahmad Alif. Okay, please show your face. Okay.
Okay. In 1, 2, and smile. Okay, thank you.
Another one more. Okay. Lagi sekali, takut tak jadi. Okay, one more. Show your face now, Ain, Aimi, Ain, Ahmad Afif, Ahmad Alif Imran, Ain, Aimi. Okay. Ain. Okay, can take a picture now.
Okay, 1, 2, smile. Okay, done.
Okay, thank you to all, okay? Especially to the panels, Mr. Angga, Miss Ina, and Madam Shaharia. Okay, hopefully we can see in next time. Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
Dr. Mastura. Thank you, panel speakers.
Okay.
And
Congratulations my colleagues.
right.
Okay, AJK, can say something to the panels now? One AJK here. Shafiq, Amir Shafiq or Amir Adnan, can you say something to the panels? This is your events. Semua tak. Sharing ideas. Appreciate. Great too. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ami Amran. Yes, okay. So we end our session now. Thank you very much. Okay. That's all. Salam. Okay, JK.
Thank you.
Record, save.
Saya save ikut doktor.
Dah ada save dah?
Dah doktor.
Okay, so saya boleh keluar Okay, thank you very much to all. Next week, nanti later lah, later discuss. Okay,
Thank you doktor.
okay. Boleh lihat kan? You boleh log live meeting.
Thank you, Doctor.